I'm giving 2 lectures. Hi, my name's Rick. That's me. I'm a guy with many hats. I went around and talked to you. Each of you probably know a little bit about just about anything you say about. I've been around the block a few times. Okay, I'm going to give 2 software lectures. Did you know that? Yes or no? No? Okay, this is the first of 2. I'm a security guy, which means I know a lot about things I shouldn't know about. I know how to break systems all over the planet. I've worked with some very large corporations around the world. My job today is to give you a bit of perspective on the world. And college code, real world code. People who've been out in the real world have seen this, right? Everything at uni looks well and easy and, only contained going out in the real world as a jolly mess. Don't get me wrong, software is a great industry to be in. It's just that in the real world, my gosh, there's all sorts of stuff that goes wrong. So I want to give you a bit of a feel about just some takeaways about the way software really works, the way the technology really works, development companies and security. Who knows much about security, by the way? Anyone here? You got any security people? Is any part of your course you're doing security? What? Okay. Shame. Why do I say that? The security industry is it's the only industry in the world that's getting worse. All right, you look at medicine, you look at retail, business, there's all sorts of, the world's going along at a breakneck pace and security's going backwards. It's not really going backwards. It's just that as the good guys, as the bad guys tend to leverage technology before good guys. So the good guys are getting better, but not at the same rate that the bad guys are getting better. Okay, so I'm going to give you a bit of a flavour about, of all the things to watch, security is going to be one of those things that you're going to watch. They say in software, just to give you a bit of feel, say in software, programming computers like, Murphy's Law, right? Anything that can go wrong will. Okay, so pretty much in the real world you'll find that things break all the time. But when you're in security, it's like programming Satan's computer. Here you have a determined adversary who is going to try and break everything that you do. And that's the sort of world that we're really in. The reason why I like security is that security cuts across all sorts of disciplines, not just computer science and engineering, but psychology and sociology and political science and economics and neuroscience and evolutionary biology and anthropology and you name it. To understand the way systems break, you have to understand how humans work, how systems work, how companies work, and that's why I find it a fascinating industry. If you've got any questions on the way through, just give me a yell. I can chat about any topic for any amount of time. Let's just talk about software. And I got the little happy guy here because, despite me being a paranoid guy, software is a great industry to be in. There is an explosion of jobs, an explosion of opportunities, an explosion of things that will go on. So let's just, I'm not sure whether you can see this or not, but pretty much, there's a guy called Mark Andreessen. Anyone heard of Mark Andreessen? Founder of Netscape? Probably Netscape. Who's heard of Netscape? Oh, well, we've got a few people around, been around for a few years. Software is hitting the world, and what this is showing is that if you roll back just 10 years, the largest companies in the world, you've got ExxonMobil, General Electric, AT&T, Procter & Gamble, so you've got people, and Google's just made the list. And now you can see that the top 5 companies in the world, well now these top 5 companies in the world are all software companies. Apple's just hit $1 trillion. And if you look at the way the venture capital people are pushing their money, pretty much pushing an awful lot of it to software. Because that's where the innovation is, that's where things are happening. And I like software because there are no bounds. So for all you mechatronics guy, you've got the problem with the physical world. I'm also an engineer. There's civil, mechanical, and electrical, it's chemical engineering. But the problems they're up against are physical things in the real world. The bio people are up against it. Software has almost no limits. And the complexity of systems that can be built in software are orders of magnitude bigger than any other system that you can build in any other discipline. Now, I'm not denigrating those other disciplines. If you're a lawyer, there's lots of complexities in the law, or if you're a doctor, there are complexities there. Whatever it is you're into, but the complexities you get in software are orders of magnitude bigger than any other discipline. And I like that because it means the intellectual challenge of software is enormous. Great industry to be in. That's I guess the point. The biggest companies. Also, just generally speaking, if you look at any industry, the biggest improvements in those industries are all because of IT and software. All right. So, one of the questions I get asked is, software is coding. There's a little graphic here, trying to learn a programming language. Little guy climbing up a hill, come on, just a little bit more, almost there. He thinks he's got to the peak and then, oh crap. There's a whole lot more. Trust me, if you think you're an expert in any field in software programming, cool, I can guarantee I could ask a question that would bamboozle you. You never get there. I've spent my life in here, and goodness me, I feel like this little guy climbing the hill. All right, so let's look at one of the things that's interesting about software is that it's not just coding. There's an awful lot of stuff around it which is not coding. And one of the reasons why I think women aren't generally in the software industry, we have one lady here, is that they also think it's coding. In software development, trust me, coding is, I was going to say the easy part. Coding is a small part. There's all these other bits. So internationalization, we know that's about making it multi-language. Just on the right-hand side, escalation, support. Anyone been on a help desk? I think there was someone here on a help desk. Right? Trust me, when customers get upset, they get really upset. And their little problem is the biggest problem. And sometimes it is a big problem. Sometimes it's a little problem, and they're just getting really frustrated about it. You can build something, and then people use it in ways you don't expect. And then they complain that it doesn't work in the way they expected it to work, and they blame you. Trust me, there's a lot of there's a whole management system there. All right, hopefully you've been into testing, automated builds, stress testing. You might have to make things multi-platform. Certifications. Anyone been through a certification of any description? What did you get? Which area?
I've done a few different ones. I've done a few Apple certifications.
Okay, an Apple certification. Okay, that's a vendor certification. You done any government certifications? Done any IRAP? Have you done any ISO 27001? Anything like that? Okay. There's a ton of certifications out there. Sometimes to get into a market, you need to have a little hippo stamp. So it's good. Technical writing. Who's done technical writing? Anyone? Whoa, that's a whole... Whenever you have a software development, you've got a software, the chances are you're going to have to document. Programmers are not good at writing. Generally speaking, they should be. Should be compulsory. Productization. Anyone know what productization is? Productizations are all those little annoying things that you spend a lot of time on. For example, license keys. You might think that write a piece of software, go and sell it. You spend half the time writing your software, you spend another half the time managing the license keys and the contracts and the other part of making it product, the installs, the samples, all those things that actually take a technology and actually move it into a product to market. Packaging. Source code control, I presume you're all Git people. Yes? Git? Anyone Subversion? Anyone? Any SVN people? Any SSCS, RCS people, team, whatever the IBM uses, team delivery team, recall team viewer, team something, team city, team foundation. Oh, yeah, that's Microsoft's one. Okay, yeah, there's Microsoft one, yes. Yeah. Important. Okay, QA, really important part of development. Come to that. Project management, task prioritization, bug tracking. I guess people, what are you using for bug tracking? Do people use GitHub? Do they use GitLab? What do people use? I don't know what it is. Okay, there's a lot of things in design. Design's an interesting one. See, people talk about agile technologies. Let me just give you a little insight. Before you write any code, before you implement, you need to design. That's completely obvious. Before you design, you need to understand. How can you design something you don't understand? The irony is, to understand, you're going to have to write it in. That's the reason why agile. And another reason for the agile is that customers don't know what they want. Does anyone talk to a customer? Yeah, talk to a customer. They want the world on day one. I call it the power steering on the bicycle syndrome. I want power steering on my bicycle. So if you build it for them, and you give it to them, they'll say, I don't want that. Oh, that's bloody useless. It makes the bike too big and heavy and slow and cumbersome and what have you. Customers don't know what they want. They do know what they don't want. They never know what they do want. So another reason for doing agile is that you get to involve the customer and you get to give the customer little snippets. Do you like this? Do you not like this? And if you get your customer involved in your process, trust me, it saves a lot of headache. Okay, architecture, I'm going to talk about that a little later. Legal approvals, this is more in biomedical area, you might have to go through all sorts of approvals. Patents, anyone involved in patents? Anyone know anything about patents? What's patent?
It's your idea that is individual and not from someone else's idea that you say, this is mine in this market, no one else can take that away from you for a certain amount of time.
And why would you file a patent?
So that someone can't just create what you've thought of the exact same way and make money off it.
So the original idea of patents was that if I publish the world what I've done, someone else can use that knowledge to go and build something better. And then they would publish that to the world and do something better. It's like the open source community is trying to do. But it's turned to the opposite. It's turned out to be a way of having a monopoly. I know a lot about patents. I've filed 40 patents in my career. I don't know whether that was worthwhile doing or not. It's a lot of effort. You've heard of patent trolls. You know what a patent troll is? Yeah, patent trolls, they go and buy up dying companies, find some patent and then go and sue companies for it. And it's a surprisingly good business model. Most of the patent trolls come out of Texas. Anyone know why they come out of Texas?
Favorable courts.
What's that?
Favorable courts.
Of course. All right, favourable courts, favourable judges who tend to side with the patentees. What can you say about patents? These days, patents are a lawyer's dream. So what tends to happen is that you get Apple sues Samsung for 50 violations, 150 violations of patents. And I come in with a pile of paper this big, and Samsung comes in with their patent portfolio and then countersues with their patent portfolio, and you end up having a cross-licensing deal and settle out of court. Because if you take it through the courts, you will get there forever. Patents, by the way, are applied in the legal system. There's a big pendulum. Sometimes they give patents too easily. Sometimes they make the patents really, really hard. And you'll find that over time it depends on which political party is in power and what the current view of the patent office is. There's been some crazy patents. I don't know if you watch the net. You know, clicking a mouse, someone tried to get a patent for. You know, so who knows? The point is here, there's a lot of areas around software that's more than coding. And if you take something to market, the amount of time you actually spend on code isn't that large compared to the total amount of manpower that goes into taking a software to market. All right. Cheaper development. Anyone heard of Fred Brooks? The Mystical Man Month? Anybody heard of him? Yeah? He famously said what one programmer can do in 1 month, 2 programmers can do in 2 months. All right. This is an area that annoys me. Let's see. Okay, so where do we start? So software is unlike most other industries that doesn't scale. The easiest way to explain this is probably to think about a book. I'm a publishing house. I want a best-selling book. So why don't I go and hire 10,000 authors? We get a best-selling book out of it? Right. 1,000 authors? 100 authors? 10 authors? 1 author. The thing is that creativity can come from a very unique sort of person. Think about a painter. How many Picassos are there in the world? Do I throw 1,000 people at a canvas and get a Picasso? 100? 10? No. What about music? Do I throw 1,000 people at a manuscript and get Beethoven? No. And the reason why this is important is this is the one reason why Australia can be as good as anyone else in the world. In fact, anyone can be as good as anyone else in the world. No culture's got a monopoly on creativity. Well, just be careful about that. Some Asian cultures suppress creativity. Right? If I was in certain parts of Asia and my boss said something wrong, I'd stuck up my hand and said, "You're wrong." Well, I wouldn't do it, probably. You never criticise your boss. You just been to China, right? Okay. Japan, Korea, you name it. But no culture's got a monopoly on creativity. Okay, so what then takes domain experience? What then takes it? Okay, so software captures knowledge. It's really important that you understand that when my mum buys an accounting system like BYOB or Xero or whatever, she's not buying a number cruncher. She's buying hundreds and hundreds of man-years worth of best practice that have been captured inside software. Okay? Software captures knowledge. And so, if you don't have that knowledge, you can't create good software. You can't. Alright? People who create the really good software in the world have some sort of lifetime experience, and they're able to capture it in software and allow someone else to make use of the software. Really important. Just to give you a bit of a feel, by the way, that software capturing knowledge, software can differentiate between skill and ability. Right? What do I mean by that? Okay, so if I was a safe cracker, right, spent 50 years learning how to break open safes. My friend here, what's your name? Tim. Right, Tim wants to be an apprentice safe cracker. So I say, "Hey Tim, come and learn with me. I'm going to teach you how to break safes." And he'll come around at my place lots and lots of time, and I've got a whole garage full of safes, and he'll learn the art of safe cracking over a long period of time. Okay? He's got skill, break safes. He's got the ability to break safes. Okay, now let's say I'm a hacker. I invent safe cracking version 1.0. It's a piece of software that can break into, say, something, Dropbox. I've got Dropbox, but it's broken into lots of times. Now I can give it to Tim. He doesn't know anything about Dropbox, doesn't know anything about hacking, doesn't know anything at all, but he can run my software and he can break into Dropbox. He has skill, no, he has ability, he has no skill. Software captures knowledge. This is the reason why you have little script kiddies, right? Downloaded the latest exploit, They're going to hack some system, they don't understand what they're doing, but they're running someone else's knowledge. Software captures knowledge. So if you don't have any experience, don't have any knowledge, you can't build world best software. And yes, in India or China or Russia or wherever it happens to be, you get an army of programmers. They're not going to build the world's best whatever it is that you're looking at. Now, for some reason, they might be good in a particular area, and that's why you have software that works in different parts all over the world. Domain experience, really important. Okay, let's look at another thing. Differences in expertise. Yeah, it's really important in software. Think about a meal. Right? I go out to a restaurant. Okay? So first of all, there's all the crap meals, so forget about those. A reasonable meal. Pay, I don't know, $10 for a bowl of noodles. Okay? Now, if I were to pay $20 for a bowl of noodles, is it going to be 2 times better? It might be a bit better, might be a little bit nicer, maybe a factor of 2. If I pay $100 for my bowl of noodles, is it going to be 10 times better? If I pay $1,000, is it going to be 100 times better? The answer is no. Okay? You don't get scale in that sort of way. So, relatively speaking, the world thinks in double. Buy a car for 20 grand, maybe for 40, 60, 80 grand I can buy a car. Buy buy a $2 million car, it is not going to be 10 or 100 times better. Alright? It's not true with software. I can hire someone, one of the guys that works for me, Ron, he's got a PhD in mathematics, a very clever guy. This guy is worth 1,000 programmers to me. He can do things that I could get 1,000 programmers to do a task, and they would never achieve it. Why? Because he's a Picasso, a painter, a Beethoven of music. He writes bloody good code. Okay? The very best coders in the world are better than an army of other coders. For me as a manager, alright, so I've previously worked for a multinational. I was a senior vice president of a $12 billion company, had 150 programs in Melbourne, had 3,000, partly responsible for 3,000 developers around the world, in 10 different countries. There are certain tasks that you give certain people because they are really good at it. Okay? This is not true in any other industry. Your best lawyer, 2, 3, 5 times better than your average lawyer. Your best doctor, 2, 3, 5 times. In programming, you can have 1,000 times better. So when someone says to you, I can get cheaper development in some country, India, Croatia, China, South America, whatever it happens to be, it's rubbish. They don't have domain experience. You don't know the people. Right? If you want to create brand new, innovative products, it's just not true. If you want to improve something you already have, maybe. Okay, Mythical Man Month. Anyone know what Mythical Man Month is? Do you remember what Fred said? Do you remember it?
Yeah. It's a book that everyone's heard of, but no one's actually read.
Well, right. What he said was, if you've got 20 people working on a project, and you want to make the project go faster, you take programmers off. You don't add more. Okay? It's just about everything else. Adding more gives you more, gives you more. Adding more gives you more. Right? Manufacturing, extend the hours, extend the number of production lines, whatever, you get more. But in software, it's not true. And the reason is because software requires good communications between the people. Right? 1 person, 2 people, there's 1 communication, 3 people, there's 3 sets, it's, or n people, like n minus 1 on n whatever on squared, proportional to the square. You find that when you run very large projects, the big problem is communicating to the different people. And there's all sorts of people who have been trying to solve this problem in all sorts of ways, and it's a very hard problem to solve. Communications is probably one of the key areas of large software projects. Another problem. Complexity versus simplicity. Einstein said everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. Actually, it probably said words different effect. Okay, so in the usual world, adding complexity probably makes things worse. Okay, so if I was to build a bicycle, adding my power steering on it makes it worse. If I was to build, if I was a plumber and I wanted to have 5 drain holes and 6 taps or whatever, it probably makes it worse. Just about anything you build, think about anything manufacturing, you want it to be no more than just what's required. My telephone here, I want a keypad and I want some buttons and a screen on it, but I don't want 1,000 other things on it. I want no more than, I wouldn't like to say, an FM radio in here. I don't know. An alarm clock. I don't know, maybe you do, maybe you don't. The problem with software is that there's no cost for complexity. I'm going to pick on Java now. Java's good for some things, Java's terrible for other things. Okay, quick story. IBM was contracted by the Australian government to build a piece of software that talks to the ATO for submitting tax reports. They gave it to IBM. They gave it millions of dollars. It had to do a number of functions. Obviously, it had to log, it had to do communications, it had to build a SOAP message. Who's done XML? Anyone done XML? Yeah, a few people? Or you're all JSON people? Yeah? Who knows what SOAP is? Anyone SOAP? Yeah. Heard it? Single Object Access Protocol. It's just tags around it. An envelope, just an XML file. Anyway, IBM had to put some SAML in it, had to put other things. So they gave it to a group of developers, I would say in another country that didn't have any experience. And they went out and they grabbed 50 different Java libraries and they put them all together and they gave it back. Did they need all 50? No. How did you configure it? Well, 50 places you configure it. A horrible piece of software. This is what I see all the time. Why? Because you look at JavaScript, right? You want to do something, you pull in the JavaScript library. You know why people have ad blockers? Not because of the ads. It's because they're downloads. You check out the different downloads. Go to a website that has ads on it. Have a look at Inspector. Right? You'll use Chrome or whatever, and have a look. A download with ad blocking, where it's blocking third-party JavaScript, might be, say, 200k. You allow libraries to pull in other libraries. It's 2 megabytes. Why? Because libraries pull in libraries, and libraries pull in libraries, and libraries pull in libraries. Just about every JavaScript library out there's has been broken in some way. So you're probably loading malware of different descriptions. Who's been attacked by JavaScript miners? Anyone? Yeah. Without even trying. All right. The reason is that it costs nothing to add complexity, and in fact, there's a market drive to add complexity. Why? I can sell my products, got more features, got this feature, got that feature. Just add it in, pile it in. Right? Horrible stuff. Especially from a security point of view. Why is that? The enemy of security is complexity. The more complex the system is, the easier it is to break. People making applications far too complex. Okay, so what's called the anomaly of cheap complexity. What you want is a sports car. What you end up doing is getting an army of people or an army of libraries, and you end up with an elephant. I see this all over the web. Big, horrible, chunky, ridiculous pieces of software. Why? Because it didn't cost anything at all. This little graphic here, being a programmer, it's got 2 things here. The blue bit is coding. The orange bit is Control-C, Control-V. Who goes to Stack Overflow these days? Yay! Yay! You want to build something? Go Stack Overflow. Copy and paste it in there. Up you go. Copy and paste. Don't know what it does, don't know how it does it. Nah, who cares? It works. Has it got a vulnerability? I don't care. Alright. Cheaper development. just put this in context. If you have something and you're trying to improve it, incremental improvements can be given to relatively unskilled people or to groups of people. Brand new, dynamic, innovative products, generally speaking, need a very dedicated and expert team to be able to do that. In my world, no such thing as cheaper development. Just about every example I can think of where things have been outsourced, where they think they're getting cheaper, has ended up costing an absolute fortune, cost them a lot of time in terms of, not just, you gotta remember that when you develop software, you can pay for the people, and then remember that other slide that I had, this one here, is all the other stuff. So what you do is you build crap code, and all the other stuff becomes incredibly expensive. The total cost of project delivery is not true. So this idea of cheaper development, personal view, my humble opinion, it's rubbish. And besides, cheaper development, what does it mean? I can get 2 or 3 expert guys, pay them an awful lot of money, or I can get an army of cheap people and pay them an awful lot more money and get a lot worse results. Okay? All right. Let's look at technology. Technology. Gotta love technology. All right. So, start off as usual, a little graph. Okay, this is done from 1991. This is sort of the evolution of the web. All the different companies started out with the read-only web. Does anybody remember these days? I remember back in 1993, 1994, HP was 5 static web pages. That was it. That was the entire site. Way back in those days. And you saw Amazon and eBay and PayPal and Google and Skype and Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Chrome and WhatsApp and Instagram, and it's this amazing growth. And then, if you take this last little bit here, okay, so up here we've got to around 4 billion devices. If you take that and you put it on this graph, and here we've got 25 billion devices coming along. Internet of Things, IoT. Because I don't call IoT Internet of Things. What do you think I call it? I call it the Internet of Threats. Why? Because you have all these little unpatched devices out there that can be used, that can be broken into and used for deep, devilish things. I actually got another acronym, which is IDIOT, which is the incredibly dumb Internet of Things. So they'll talk about Internet of Things being all these smart devices. For me, they're all incredibly dumb. And we just wait. You see all the time all the botnets coming up, all the routers that have been taken over. Every single baby monitor has been broken. Every single one. Why? Because you have these little manufacturers, awful lot of them out of China. I don't know anything about security. Rig up a baby monitor, put a bit of software around it, allow people to log in so they can do their baby monitor. They have no idea that they can be broken in lots and lots of ways. Okay. So, what's happening here? Well, the costs are driving towards zero. So, CPUs are costing next to nothing, storage costing next to nothing, networking costing next to nothing, and so you get an explosion of all these devices. As the price drops, the amount of activity goes up. Okay, so this is a pretty exciting world. Better languages. This is a little interesting graph, which probably reflects a little bit in this room. Okay, we've got Python and Java being the big ones here, C++, C#, C, some JavaScript there. Any Ruby programmers in the room? Have any Ruby? No. Okay, if you're a webby person, you might. A bit of PHP. Haskell is an interesting language. Anyone look at Haskell? Yeah, interesting web language. And there's a few other ones up there. Go. Anyone been a Go? Okay, for those people who are C programmers, Go is a much, much safer language. Actually done a really nice job bit of Perl in there as well. And some VB and other things as well. What's interesting here, if you look at the IEEE 2018, this is it for web programming, mobile, desktop, or embedded devices? And you can see the different languages are starting to strap out towards particular platforms. Okay, so are these languages getting any better? Well, in my day you had assembler and you had C, and C was a high-level language. These days you have C and you have the managed languages, which is your C# and your Java and things. And C is a low-level language because it's very easy to shoot yourself in the foot. And the managed languages are very good in many ways. All right, so over here we've got what's happening in probably the front-end world. Now, in the old days, JavaScript was coming up. There was a ton of interesting language. Anyone heard of Java Server Faces? JSF? Anybody? It was all the rage in the early 2000s. And then we had the Google Web Toolkit. Any GWT people here? The idea here was that you wrote your code and then Google would compile for all the different various JavaScripts out there. And then gradually you've had, for people who've been around just in the last, say, 10 years, Backbone.js, and then Angular's come along, Angular 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 now, I think we're up to, and then not up here is React, and then because people got fed up with Angular, so React came along. On the other hand, Facebook didn't want to use what Google did, so Facebook invented their own. People got fed up with React, and now we're using Vue.js. Anyone use Vue.js? Anybody? Very nice. Oh, really good. And then in the UI world, you have all these frameworks that pop up. So we have the Foundation. Anyone use Foundation? Anyone use Bootstrap? Must use Bootstrap. There's the Google web UIs. They're all cool. These frameworks are starting to drop off because people are starting to use more utility-first CSS, like Tailwind. Anyone use Tailwind? Tailwind? No? Okay. No. Anyway, a lot of stuff. Over in here, you see here there's TypeScript. So people don't like JavaScript, they like type safety that's being pushed by Microsoft. There's people that don't like SQL, so you've got MongoDB, which is all of your object and databases. Anybody use a non-SQL database? Yeah, which one?
Mongo, but I've also used a bit of, well, it's not actually a database, but Elasticsearch.
Oh, yeah.
It isn't a database, but it's similar in a lot of ways.
So the thing is about why I put this slide up is that languages are kind of evolving. Python has grown. I think Python has done a really good job. In Google, the entire security suite in Google is written in Python, just to give you a bit of a feel. All of the attack tools are written in Python. It's a very nice language, generally speaking. Way back, if you go back 20 years ago, that was all Perl. Any Perl programmers here? Yeah, Perl. Interesting scripting language right out there. Front-end design is the one that's changing and changing. So even you look at Node.js, right? NPM is a package manager. That's all been pretty much getting replaced by Yarn because NPM is no good. It's slow these days. In PHP world, the package manager is Composer. You want to use Composer? Yeah. Okay. Maybe. All right. Anyway, the point is, this world changes all the time. There are new tools, there are new techniques. And every time you learn something, that's going to be superseded by something else. What I will say is that some of the basic principles remain the same. As a security guy, I watch every one of these come along, and they follow the same problems in security, just all the time. All right. Let's have a look at standards in the world So here's a bit of a journey. I'm guessing that most of you were born in the 1990s, would that be right? Anyone born in the 80s? Anyone? 70s? 60s? Okay. Alright, so let's just have a look at about the world here. And the thing to realise about technology is driven by economics. Okay? So you have hardware, you have software, you have networks, you have operations infrastructure. And each of those at different times have different costs. So way back in the 70s when there was a mainframe, has anyone programmed on a mainframe? Anyone been on a 3270? Honeywell? Anyone? No? Block my terminals? Look at these grey hairs, showing my age. Basically, these are just like a browser and a web server. You had a terminal, and you would fill it out, basically like a form, and you would send it into the mainframe, and that'd be batch queued, and you'd have it off. Now, in these days, it was incredibly expensive. Storage was incredibly expensive. CPUs were incredibly expensive, and relatively speaking, the comms, which in those days were modems. Anyone been on a 9600 baud modem or less in those days? Anyone use the old modems? Anyone? Those were the days. Okay, so what happens, because networking was relatively cheap compared to storage, in those days you had these washing machines, right? And they'd have 4K of memory in them. 4K, right? My wristwatch has probably got a megabyte in it. Okay, so what happened was, in the 70s, everything was centralized. Okay? You had very, very strong centralization. Everything was done on the server. Now, in the 80s, what happened is you started to get the microprocessors coming out. You had the early PCs. Anyone done Commodore 64, Apple II, Ataris? What's the one had the blitter in it? The Amiga. Amiga. Remember Amiga? Oh, they were revolutionary in their days in the early 80s. On a board, you've got a bus. The bus talks to memory, the bus talks to the I/O, so you have the CPU talks to memory, and so you've got a clock. You've got the clock, right? The clock governs what happens. You've all done this in computer science, presumably, yeah? You've all done clocking and all that sort of stuff. Now, what the Amiga design was, they doubled the speed of the clock, and they had another processor called the blitter. And this processor, between every clock cycle, could actually use the bus and the memory and the I/O. So what you do as a programmer is you have a game, and you want to move a sprite on the screen. You can program the blitter to say, move the sprite. And in the next clock cycle, when the main CPU wasn't using the bus, the blitter would move the memory into it. And you get some really cool games. In those days, fantastic stuff. Anyway, these days, what do you got? You got bloody GPUs with 3,000 cores and you don't care left, right? Okay, so what happened was, these distributed guys, so the CPUs got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. The relative hardware, people were building their own. And relatively speaking, the network was expensive, the network was slow. So what happened was, the world became distributed. You had these applications started to go out onto the extremes. And what was interesting about these guys, they had a blind hatred for these guys. Anything central was evil. Anything centralized evil. It had to be distributed. It had to go out to the world. Okay, so this was all right, and they went along. There's all sorts of protocols. And there's some nice standards built. X509, of course, is certificates. Still around today. You've all looked at certificates, right? Who knows what ASN1 is? Anyone?
Isn't it some kind of data format used in all of these certificates?
Abstract syntax notation number 1, it's a binary format. It's a binary data coding format. You're absolutely right. Still around today, and despite all these people who tried to invent new stuff, they can't. Because it's bloody good.
It's one of those things that only seems to turn up when someone has created a parser for it that doesn't check the lengths.
That's right. Yep. There's like all basically an awful lot of vulnerabilities. If you look at all the vulnerabilities in the world, a great chunk of them to do with interpreters. And the reason is interpreters are interpreting things. They're basically little programs. And so bad guys, you go look at Flash, right? Why is it crap? It's interpreted, right? So what you do is you craft a malicious payload, as you say. You could fiddle with the lengths or fiddle with whatever it is, and then you could create a buffer overflow, and then in the payload include some malicious code, which would then go and get executed. You can take over the machine. There's a lot of vulnerabilities around there. Okay, so what happens then? The web came along. Well, if you look at what happened with the web has gone back to being centralized again. Right? You have dumb browsers, do no processing at all. They simply have everything back on the server. Now the web guys, right? They saw all these binary protocols, right? PKI, SY, and they said, no, we're going to produce text protocols. So they produced XML and SMTP and FTP and SOAP and all these things. And these guys had a blind hatred for anything that was binary, anything at all. So they tried to invent some new standards as security guys. WS security, XML signatures suck. Just relatively speaking, they're just terrible, because they're trying to create a human readable text form and then run security operations over them. Okay, so then the internet came along, and then of course what happened? Then 2008 we had the big crash, and suddenly everything became very expensive. Now, at this point in time, operations become very expensive. All right, you've got storage that's cheap, you've got networking that's cheap, right? But operations is becoming very expensive. So what do? You outsource it. Okay, so you have all these cloud guys coming along, and all these cloud guys, they hate tags. They hate XML. They loathe and detest it. So they've gone and built JSON, JWT, and so on. And so these days, if you put XML on your resume, you can go and look at Stack Overflow. And people will say, don't put XML on your resume, you won't get a job. Right? Besides, these guys hate these guys. All right, and they're fiddling around with their object signing and encryption stuff. Okay, and then the next thing that's happened is the world that you guys are working into, and that is that the cloud is really a consumery thing. If you look at, say, electronic invoicing, anyone done here economics? Anyone done economics? Right, you know, the basic purchase order, invoice, remittance advice. Right, you all done that? Yeah. There's 1 billion invoices in Australia every year. About 80 or 90% of them are still manual. Right? PDFs. Some people think that making electronic invoices is taking your paper PDF and producing a PDF and sending it to the other people. And so where the world is going is to have this automation, because automation drives business efficiency. Just a quick observation about automation. We'll get into this in the security lectures, but all technology is dual use. It means anything that good guys use it for, the bad guys can use it for. Yeah, my mobile phone, fantastic. All the good things are used for, bad guys can use it for triggering bots. Everything is dual use. So what's happening in the world, what everyone should be concerned in the world, is that as you automate and automate and automate and automate, you become more and more reliant on fewer and fewer systems. That means if the bad guys get hold of the systems, they can do more and more and more damage. Now, let's give an example of a few years ago when the Russian hackers hacked the, was it Estonia power grid? I think it was, took it all offline. Right? Oh, by the way, it was at the time it was thought it was a cyber. It was a cyber. That was a different one. So back in about 2008, there was an attack on one of the Russian eastern countries, and it was seen as a piece of cyber war. It turned out to be a disaffected 22-year-old kid in a basement who was a bit peeved that some statue in some park had been taken down by the Russians, so he launched an attack on wherever he did. Anyway, going back to when the power grid was taken out, 20-something power stations. And so what happened was, I don't know whether it was Estonia or Latvia or whichever country it was, the electrical authority was able to say to 20 engineers, go out and manually restart it. And they couldn't restart it because the system was so inefficient. And so therefore it was very hard for the bad guys to actually take it out for a long period of time. So the more you automate systems, and that's where the world is going more and more and more automations, the more you centralise, the more opportunity is going to be for bad guys to take it over. Right, so okay, so are we getting better in the world? Are we getting better standards in the world? Well, you know what? We've still got certificates. It doesn't matter how many times every single group has tried to throw them out. Right? And I've watched the standards groups, I watched the RFCs, I watched the CCITT and ISO and all the other groups trying to throw them out. There is no better way. Okay, now this isn't perfect, but it's good. Compared to every other proposal, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of proposals, they're all crap. Excuse my language. They are just terrible. Okay? So sometimes things get better, sometimes they don't get better. Just watch what happens. The important thing is that the internet gives leverage. The internet gives efficiencies. And for every good thing the internet does, it's also good for the bad guys. Gives them efficiencies, gives them leverage. Talk about that next week. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about development. The world of development. Horrible. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to build some software, whatever it is. It's going to be tested, packaged, documented, all very nice. And as we know, development is slow. Things take time, there's a lot of complexity, you've got versions, platforms, branches, reviews, licensing, billing, auto-build, auto-test, everything's got to have a process around it. You've got to write specs, you've got to follow the specs, you have to do the whole iteration cycle. This is hard, development is hard, it's slow to get it right. Writing a book is hard, painting a picture is hard, just barely speaking. Okay, so let's have a look. The sales guys want more releases more often with more features. More. We need to sell. Can't sell to this customer. It doesn't have this, it doesn't have that. Right? So they'll go across to the development team and they'll say, hey, I've got to have this feature, I've got to have this feature, I've got to have that feature, I've got to have this feature, it's got to be done yesterday. And because there's my market, my customers have got this opportunity, or my opposition's got it and I don't have it, or we want to, there's a big demo coming up in such and such, we have to have. So sales guys are going to push you for more and more and more features and functions. All right, now let's have a look at what the people who are running the software, right? They don't want releases. They hate releases. Every DevOps person hates a release because chances are something's going to break. So, even if you produce it, they may not even go and implement it. They don't go and implement it, that's a problem. Why? Because there's a vulnerability, it leaves your vulnerability back up. And the things that these guys want, you can't sell. What these guys want is they want it to be easy to configure, easy to integrate, easy to back up, it's got notifications, it's got nice error messages, it's got lots of it's got good performance and good security, it supports a whole lot of platforms, it's got all sorts of special APIs to integrate with other things. You can't sell this stuff. The people who are running the software, they want this stuff. The sales guys don't care less. He's not going to say, we support 5 different platforms. He doesn't care less. He wants to sell more features. Alright? So these operations guys got pressure on you software guys. Hey, I want more alerts here, I want better logging here, I want better notifications, I want more integration, I want more platforms, I want more APIs. They're going to push you guys to say, Bill, put this stuff in there. I don't care about features, no more features. No, I want stuff that makes the product run better and integrate better. Alright? what the customers do, right? Customers, as I said, they don't want to implement. If they got something running, they don't want to change it. Look at the amount of XP that's still in the world. Anyone know of a company running XP? What about your mum or your dad or whatever? You know, still running XP. You don't want to change it. The reason why so many systems have been still broken, like you've still got all those FPOS systems still running XP. Why? Because it takes time, it takes effort to roll out new versions. You might have to take systems down, you might have to migrate, you've got to commission. This is really, really, really hard. So you can produce something and your customers won't implement it. What does this mean? This means now you've got to support all the backward versions. You've got all these branches with these old versions, and all these old customers that won't move. Every time you now do a piece of development, you've got to go and put it in all branches. This is a horrible world. No pressure. If you work in a large company, this is what you get all the time. Our development team is absolutely drawn apart. Arms and legs. Like this. Okay, when to release? How often? Whoa, be tough. Test. Test well before release. Test. Okay, it's been proven over and over and over and over and over again. The cost of fixing a bug. When you're at the coding stage, just change a value on a whiteboard. Done. It's almost done. Right? By the time you're in the testing phase, well, I've got to go back and rewrite a bit of code here. By the time you go into your alpha testing phase, by the time you've done a release, any bug that gets out there costs you an absolute fortune. The earlier you can hit bugs, the better off you're going to be. Okay, so why is this a problem? Well, think of it in two ways. Remember what I said about functionality. The sales guys want to get this thing out as fast as possible. I'll fix the bugs later. Get it out. Fix the bugs later. Well, we've got a first mover advantage. We've got to test the market. We've got to get some money back in the door for all our investments. We've got all these people who are expecting things. The marketing guys have got a really good point. Because the way products win in the market is what's called a network effect. And the network effect says that, and if you do economics, I'll tell there's a whole theory about it. It says that the value of a network is basically proportional to the square of the number of users. Think about a fax machine. If I'm the only person with a fax machine, it's bloody useless. 10 people have got it, I can talk to 10 people. 1 million people have got it, I can talk to 1 million people. Alright, so that's why Microsoft went flat chat out to the market with their operating system, didn't care about security, right, because it's more important to get market penetration. Why did Facebook? Facebook went out, anything they could do to get more people, they would get the platform. And you leverage and monetize your platform later. So there's tremendous pressure, and all the things that end in Y, dependability, reliability, maintainability, efficiency, portability, reusability, stability, all the things that good software is, forget about it. Build later. This is terrible. The reason why we've got so much terrible software out there is because even if you do care about this stuff, you don't get a chance to implement it. Right? So, now what else does this mean? This means that there's an awful lot of software going out in the field which has got vulnerabilities. This is the reason, one of the reasons why the bad guys are having a field day. Name any large piece of software and it is riddled with bugs. Now, how do we know that it's riddled with bugs? Okay, take my pick on Microsoft. By the way, Microsoft, very, very bad. Gradually, they've now got a security. They've understood the importance about security. I would rank Microsoft very good. Okay, they have a very large security team and they really do care about getting security. All right, how do we know that the bugs, we're not getting on top of the bugs? Anyone? When you think about bug density. If there were 10 bugs, and you knock them off one at a time, it's going to get harder and harder and harder and harder to find new bugs. Right? And it's going to take longer and longer time to find those new bugs. It's going to be less of them and more time. Well, guess what? We see software out here to be patched and 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 patched. And the reason is because if you fix 10 bugs and there's 100,000 of them, it makes no difference. Okay? The reason why the bad guys have such a field day is because there's a smorgasbord of bugs out there to go and attack. What do the military do, by the way? Anybody involved in QA in the military? Anyway? Anyone heard of assurance? Know what it means? Anybody? Okay, so the world we live in today, assume it's secure, let someone find a bug, patch it, and now assume it's secure again. Wrong. What the military do is assume insecure and prove that it's secure. Prove correctness. Prove it doesn't have bugs in it. And which industry has assurance? Name some industries, anyone? Yeah? Well, the airline industry.
Finance.
Finance.
Should have.
To a point, yes. Finance. Finance have a very interesting model. Just hang on. Defence says assume that it's busted, and so assume that that's broken and prove it's correct, which is fantastic. And I'll come over to this. The finance industry have a reconciliation model. Accounting is just reconciliation, money in, money out, right? And so what the financial industry do, which is don't produce bug-free software. Obviously, they do or don't. But by God, detect when anything goes wrong. That's the reconciliation part. And so what their financial industry does is that they'll build a piece of software and they'll build this much around it to do the reconciliation. And it turns out that that's because of laws, right? Why does the car industry and the plane industry? Because they have liability laws, all right? Software industry, no liability. You've read the 50 pages of agreements. We accept no liability. In fact, I'm going to sell you a piece of software, and it's not going to do what you think it is. I give no guarantees that will be anything like what you think you're buying it for. And you release me from anything that could possibly happen by using the software. That's the software work. Right? Buy a piece of software, not fit for purpose. In commerce, you have this thing called a meeting of the minds. Meeting of the minds says a buyer, right? A buyer wants to buy something, a seller wants to sell something, and they agree that there's a certain price to solve the problem. You don't get it in software, do you? Right? The seller says, here's a piece of software. Use it if you want to. Don't use it if you don't want to. Your choice. Anyone done law? Who's done law? Who's done law? In contract law, it says you can't have one party that's too powerful compared to the other party, right? Like, for example, if I'm your employer, right, and I say, sign this employment contract, else you don't get a job. What are you going to do? Right? I'm more powerful, and in a court of law, there's ways that contract can be deemed unlawful. You can't sign a contract under duress. Right? I walk up with a gun, sign this, and you signed it. Right? You have a contract, you have a signature, you just sign under duress. Right? So law has this idea that you can't be put under duress, you can't have the two parties, the two people. And yet, what do we have in software? 20, 30 pages of legal agreements. Does anyone actually read them? There's actually a site called TLDR. Anyone see that? Too long didn't read? TLDR.org?
I know what it says. It says whatever happens, we win.
Yeah, that's right.
That's like,
Anyway, software industry. Build a piece of crap software, sell it, and then take no liability for it. What a business model. What do you think about it? It's amazing. Yeah, sorry. I get sidetracked. All right. Where are we here? We're got a little bit more to go. Okay, let's look at companies. Companies, do they know what they're doing? If you look at R&D. So remember, R&D is all those things around software, and coding is one little bit, coding, R&D. In this bigger picture, what happens is that you have a lot of things going on at the executive level. So you have competitors' products and competitors' innovation, and then you have what your investors want, what the market wants, what the business strategy wants, who's pouring money into this thing, and you have this swirl of changing priorities. The reason why it's important is that if you're in a big company and you think you're building what you're building, the reason for building it may change over time. Your requirements may change over time. You may get out of the market for the product that you're building, but you may be building it for a different reason than you think. Just want to give you a quick example. Give you a quick example in a moment. Okay. I'll come back to this. The point is that the world is changing, not just in terms of technology, but the world is changing in sort of businesses. And all businesses change. And all businesses will have changing priorities. And so what your project of today that you think is funded today might get chopped tomorrow. Okay? And I don't know if any of you have experienced this or not, but the product that you think you're building today may turn out to be a different product that you take to market tomorrow. I want to give you a few examples. This idea of let the market decide is just insane. All right, so I've already told you customers don't know what they want. You do know what they don't want, but they don't know what they want. So you might build a product that no one wants to buy. Do customers buy the best product? No. If it looks good, it's got a really fancy UI in it, chances are I'll buy it. So you can buy a product that's this deep and looks okay, or you can buy a product that's this deep and it's got this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful user interface. You know which is going to win? User interface. People buy, book depending on its cover. Or they buy it because everyone else is buying it. I'll come back to that. Good products go to market. Good products go to market. Okay, this is an example I'll give you. All right. Okay, so this is kind of odd. Large multinationals. Let's take the last point first, because I'll come back to it. Do big companies innovate? By the way, do big companies innovate? No. Yes, no, maybe. Think about Google, Apple, they probably do a pretty good job. What do you think?
Sometimes.
And
it depends a lot on the culture of the company.
Yeah. It's a bit more than that.
They usually buy their innovation.
Big companies buy little companies. Big companies buy little. I'll explain to you why. And it's taken most of my career to understand this. If you go into a big company, let's say Symantec or IBM, McAfee, I don't know, CA, I don't know, any big company, they have got everything. Or you think they've got everything. They've got people, tons of people. They've got tons of technology. They've got tons of expertise. They've got a whole sales team. They've got a ton of processes. They've got everything. You want to build something new in a particular thing, you've got software modules, you've got experts in the field for the domain knowledge, you've got sales people to go out and sell it. Big companies have got everything except one thing. What don't they have? There's one thing that you need in software that big companies don't have.
They don't have like the room to move or to create anything because they have too many layers of management.
They have layers of management, yeah. Let's assume that there are companies that make some room to allow people to go and build stuff. The one thing that companies don't have is time. Software takes time. Anyone who's built anything at all know it takes time. Part of the reason is you've got to pour your knowledge into it. It takes time to capture that knowledge and time to build that out. It's time. You know the old expression? 9 months for a baby, you can't make it go faster. Nothing you can do makes the baby come out faster. It takes 9 months to grow, okay, to be born. And that's true with software. Okay, so there's another problem with time is that for any given new problem, there are many, many, many ways of attacking that problem. And there's a Darwinian thing going on here. And the Darwinian thing that's going on here is that you have a whole lot of little companies who are pouring money into a problem, and they're all trying different solutions. What will happen over time is the best one will start to take market share. For whatever reason, they've chosen the right technologies and the right way to take it to market. And think of it like a set of species, a whole lot of dying off, and the successful ones get to grow. All right. Now, if you think about the ecosystem of 1,000 companies all trying to build stuff, and one of them grows, and then the multinational comes in and pays an absolute premium price for that company. Now think about what happens if they try to do it themselves. The problem is they can't try 1,000 ideas. They'll go to their smartest people in their company and they'll say, we need a product for this market, please go and build it. And this group, and this is inside Google or whoever it is, incredibly smart people will choose one of those 1,000 ways, and no one knows at that point in time whether that one is the one that's going to take the market. Big companies buy little companies because they can't try every idea and they can't prove which it is and they haven't got the time. Okay, so here's the story. I know in a large company there are two different motivations for the success of the company. All right? So in the stock market, there's two different sorts of investors. What are they? Anyone? Yeah, dividend investors. They want money every month. You have asset growth. People want to see the share price go up. Right? There are two different sorts of people. Some people just want the dividend. They go to Telstra or whatever have you, at 5%, or the bank at 5%. Or they go for, one of the big guys, Facebook or whatever, where the price just keeps going up and up. They're not getting any money in return, just watching their asset growth. So it turns out inside a company you have two different reasons for doing development. You have one, the cash cow of the products that are out in the market already, giving you lots and lots of money, right? And trust me, this is a cash cow. I mean, billions of dollars per year. When the GFC hit, these big companies, cash kept rolling through the door. They got contracts. Cash just rolls in. Cash fills it up. But they also want their share price to go up. So what they do is they have a set of people looking after existing products earning a lot of money, and they grab their innovation group and they say, Mr. Innovation Group, go and build me a new product that I can take to market, show that we're innovative, and this will push our share price up. Okay, so senior executives, they have a very smart set of people. They come along and they say, we're after to go over some particular market. I'll give you an example. There's a role management company. There was a multinational who had a security suite, and they had a hole in it. It was called role management. Role management is to do with privilege management, that sort of stuff. So they said to this innovation group, go and build it. Now meanwhile, there were some role management companies out here. The best of it wanted $100 million for the acquisition. $100 million. Otherwise, go and have a nice day, because we're doing very well. So, the big multinational goes along to a little group and say, go and build me a role management product. So these very, very, very smart people bust their gut for 2 years, build a very, very nice, got thrown a couple $1 million, 10, 20, 30 people, and they build a role management product. They get some beta customers, they're about to go to customer, they're about to go to market. So think about this. You're in this group, you're in the innovation group, you're being told, hey, this is really important to the company, it's missing in our portfolio, go and build this product, go and get your first beta customers, or first alpha customers, go and take this to market. So you're in the development team, you've worked bloody hard, you've built something that you believe is bloody good, you're ready to take to market, your customers love it. Now your executives come along, and they go back to this company and they say, yeah, well, we love your role management. But guess what? You think you're worth $100 million. We've just built our own role management, and we're about to go to market, and we're going to sink your company, because we're going to produce one that we build in-house with our name and our marketing team. Unless, of course, you want to sell your company, so for $20 million. And you haggle and haggle and haggle and haggle, and maybe you come up with a $50 million price mark, and they buy this for $50 million. Now look at the executive's point of view. The executive point of view is, I've gone and built something for $2 million. Let's say it was $2 million over 2 years. Let's say I put $4 million in here. Now let's suppose this was $40 million, and then this was a $50 million company. I've saved the company $50 million for an outlay of $4 million. I squash this product, never go to market, buy the role management company for $50 million. Now you're in the development team, you're pissed, right? Trusted your gut, gone and found out, built the world's best product, gone and found your alpha customers, beta customers, and you told it's never going to market. Can it, walk away, you're all sacked. You built the world's best product, and you've been sacked for it. Why? Because the bigger goal was to buy this company not for $100 million, but for $20 or $30 or $40 million. Alright? Big companies buy small companies. Alright. So, given that, let's look at do good products go to market? So there's a thing called the Lemmings products. You ever heard of Lemmings products? There's an economic theory about good products. Bad products drive good products out of the market. Okay, so let's describe how this works. And basically speaking, when the buyer can't tell the difference between a good product and a bad product, they'll always buy the cheaper product. Okay, so the analogy is, you have a little town, there are 2 car yards. Okay, 2 car yards. One's dodgy brothers. They bring in these crap cars, right, polish them all up, look nice on the showroom floor, and you have Mr. Honest over here, who's got good cars. The good cars are selling for 20 grand each, the dodgy cars are selling for 10 grand each, but they both look shiny, and the average customer comes up, and they can't tell the difference between the two. What are they going to do? They're always going to choose the cheaper one. What happens over time? The bad guy goes out of business, the good guy goes out of business. Good products get forced out of the market when the buyer can't tell the difference. What's happening with technology? It's getting far too complicated. The more complex it is, the harder it is. I'll give you an example. Just insecurity is even harder because it's AISA. Everyone heard of AISA, Australian Information Security Association? They've got a conference in, I think it's in October. Wander up, go down there, choose any vendor you like, any big name, vendor, say, explain what your product does. And let them babble away for 5 minutes. And then after that 5 minutes, say to yourself, do I have any clue this guy's doing good? Right? Problem is, he can't explain his product. Me, the buyer, I can't understand what his product does. Right? So, are we ever going to sell it? Meeting in the minds? Probably not. So, what happens is, good products, well built, crap products, terrible built, buyer can't tell the difference, cheaper always wins, good guys get forced out of the market, end up with rubbish products. The market full of rubbish products. That's where we are, because economics drives it. Okay. Let's just talk about software and services. Again, from the sales point of view. I'm a sales guy. I've got a product, and I've got some people who can go and install the product and help the customer get going. So I walk up to 2 different customers. Here's my 2 different customers. The first customers have got, who knows what OPEX and CAPEX is in terms of budgets? Anyone? OPEX is your operational expenditure. CAPEX is your capital expenditure. Some companies might be out to buy stuff. They've got a CapEx budget. They can buy capital equipment, and they can write it off over 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. Some people have got OpEx budgets that says we can go and buy services because we can write them off straight away. So what this means is, if I've got $1 million product, I can walk up to the CapEx guy and say, oh, you've got $1 million CapEx, you know what I'll do? $1 million product, I'll throw in all these services for free. I will give you free of charge some people who work on site and help you with your product. And I'll go, great. This guy says, oh, you don't have any CapEx budget. I tell you what I'll do, I'll give you the product for free. But along with it, you've got to have an army of people to install it for you. Okay? Right. Now what does this mean? If I build a product that doesn't require any services, that's the best product, right? Just install it, use it, run it. Works perfectly. Or I can build a really piece of crud product that requires an army of people to look after. An army of people to look after. Now I'm going to pick on the government here, because government is classic for this. Buy a really good product, doesn't require any services, buy a piece of rubbish and an army of services. Okay, what happens? I'm going to pick on IBM, but that could be Oracle, could be anybody. If I sell this product, which is really nice, works straight away, $10 million, or I can sell these products that over time will make me $100 million. I can build a really good product, doesn't require any services. I can build a piece of rubbish product that will sell over time and make me $100 million. What do you think the sales guy is going to sell? The good product or the rubbish product? He's going to sell the rubbish product. So, the incentive in the big companies is to fill the portfolio with rubbish products. Not really good products, rubbish products. Okay, so what this means, and then the irony is, you sell a really good product and someone says, oh yeah, it works first time. You sell them a rubbish product and you ask this person how to go, oh, we had a few things, but oh, there are these wonderful people that came in and they helped, and every time there's a problem they solved it, and, you know, there's all these people around helping and they got it all going eventually. We love this company. TLC, Tender Love and Care. This is the hands-off company, just sells it and it works. This is the one that sends people in and massages egos. Trust me, there's a whole industry out there of sales and support people who do nothing else but hand to the customer and say, oh yes, we'll solve that problem. Oh, you got this problem, just wait a minute there, we'll fix that for you. But toothpicks and band-aids, and they gradually patch it into working order over the course of a year, or whatever the time is. Right? Another example, not on the list. Government goes out to tender. They want something. They want something. But they don't know what they want. So you have a little company that comes along and says, well, this will solve your problem. You have a big company that comes along and says, oh, well, yeah, but you don't know, you probably need this, and you'll need this, and you'll need this, and you'll need this, and you'll need this. And yeah, it's going to cost you a lot more money, but you know what? You know, you've got to cover yourself in case it doesn't work. So what happens is, this will solve their problem. This will give them a ton of things they don't need or they don't want. Worse, it's going to be so complex that there's going to be an army of people that's going to look after it forever. But you know what? He's a big guy, he's a little guy. Why from the big guy? Probably safer. I have this in my company. I have fantastic products. I go to government, they say, no, we can pay $300 million to IBM, we can pay $1 billion to HP for their data centers, but we can't pay you $1 million for your software because, you know, we can't do that. You're a little guy. You can't give us indemnities, you can't give us guarantees. It happens in the real world. Let the market decide. What a load of rubbish. Anyway. Security, I'll just finish up here. In your course, you've learned all about development, we learned all about operations, we learned all about management. The elephant in the room is security. If anything's going to go wrong, it's going to be the security side. Anyone in DevOps, they are paranoid about security. People in management, believe it or not, you have the risk and your control and your compliance officers. When things go wrong, they go badly wrong. I'll just say here that the best developers that I've ever come across understand security. The best projects I've come across understand security. The most mature companies are the ones that understand security. Look at Microsoft, for example. Generally, people say, security? I haven't been hacked. Why should I worry about security? People. Okay, why is security hard? Security is hard because there are two ways to sell something. There's greed, and there's fear. Greed is I want something. And when you want something, you pay anything you like. I want an Apple iPhone. I don't care it costs $1,500. I'll buy it anyway. I want it. Fear says, you don't want it. No. The selling pitch is, buy this because you want it. Selling pitch is here, buy this because if you don't have this, you'll get what you don't want. Like selling insurance. Terrible. Terrible. A greed sell always wins. A fear sell is very, very, very hard. Security is a fear sell. People basically will take the risk. Why? It hasn't happened to me. Why? So why should I take the risk? You know, I haven't been broken into. How do I know I'm not going to be broken into in the future? I don't want to buy something which you can't guarantee won't happen, so I'll just take the risk. Anyway, more of that next week. But, I don't think anyone did economics. There was a Nobel Prize for economics called prospect theory. Anyone come across it? Prospect theory? Changed the entire world of economics. Two guys, I think it was, in the US, they basically said that when it comes to evaluating risk, we are risk averse when it comes to gains and risk taking when it comes to losses. Alright, so here's a quick example. I could offer everybody in this room, say $500. Or I could offer you $1,000 on a coin flip. What are you going to take? Who take the guarantee of the 500? Who take the coin flip? Okay, 1 or 2, that's about right. So, across all cultures, all races, all ages, it's the same. You've got the choice of a guaranteed return or a risky, larger return. You'll take the guaranteed return. Okay, now flip side. You will owe me $500, but at a coin flip, you can owe me $1,000 or nothing. Who's going to pay me the 500? Guaranteed. We'll take the coin flip and say, I'll risk 1,000. There you go. You're more risky. If you look at evolutionary biology, the reason is that I can be a tiger. There's some scraps on the ground here I can eat. Or I can go after the gazelle over there, have an absolute feast, but if I miss, I'll die of starvation. The correct evolutionary answer to this problem is always take the scraps, get to live another day. So you will be risk averse when it comes to gains. Okay, now the flip side. You got a little rabbit or guinea pig in the corner. I'm a fox. He's cornered him. The fox is going to eat him, right? So from the guinea pig's point of view, oh shit, my days are over. However, he could try running through the legs of the fox. Very high risk. But you know what? Going to die. Take the risk. Take the risk. Do something outrageous. Right? Crawl over the top, whatever it happens to be. Risk taking when it comes to losses. Why? The guinea pig's going to die. Take the risk. The worst you can do is die. Okay, that's what the evolution. And it turns out in evolutionary biology, in psychology, that's the way the brain works. Now, Why is this important? Well, this is a problem with security, isn't it? I could buy the security, maybe I'm better off, but I'm risk averse when it. Or I can have, or I can risk that I'm going to be hacked. You know, just take the small. So the small gain is what I buy because I get hacked. And so the most people take the risk. Why? Because I've been hacked. Anyway, I get time to. Last thing. Remember I said all technology is dual use? This is the way I think of the world. Remember I showed you that graph, everything getting better and better and better? E-commerce, search engines, wiki, social, cloud computing. Right? If you look at the statistics on the web, absolutely extraordinary. There's 100 terabytes of indexed web pages. There are 2 billion websites. There's nearly 4 billion users. Each day there's 500 million tweets, 5 billion YouTube views, 3.5 billion Google searches, 10 billion downloads, 200 billion emails. I mean, this is just absolutely amazing stuff, right? But on the bad guys are getting better and better and better and better and better as well, right? Number of scams, number of infections, the amount of cybercrime in the world goes down here. The thing that pisses me off is this one. Bad guy. Governments who hoard vulnerabilities. Okay, who's heard of the vulnerability equities process? Anyone? No? Okay, so I'm the government, I'm the NSA, I'm GCHQ in the UK, I'm the spooks, discover a critical flaw in Microsoft. What can I do? I have two things. I can tell Microsoft and they can fix it and then all of Australia gets better. Let's take the US. All of the US gets better. Or I can weaponize it and I can use it against my enemies. That's the choice. What governments are doing is weaponizing things. Not making the world safer, building weapons. And why do I get really peeved about this? Is because those weaponized attack tools leak. Weaponized attack tools in the defense industry today is your cybercrime weapons of tomorrow. All of the major cybercrime groups in the world are using weaponized technology that's come out of the military. Why? Because they break them. What does this mean? It means that governments is funding cybercrime. That's what it means. It's completely stupid, but people are scared, so they, And what happened after 9/11? People weaponizing things. And there was a guy that came out and visited from GCHQ, and I said to him, listen, you can make the world safer, or you can hoard a vulnerability that gives you an attack capability. He said, when we're going after terrorists, we need the attack capability. I said, so you're willing to let 1 billion people be less safe so that maybe if there's a terrorist, you may be able to attack him with that vulnerability. He said, yep. We need the capability to break terrorists with terrorist activities. That's the mindset. So let me tell you, it's completely wrong. It's completely wrong. You don't want the world to be a less station space. Anyway, we'll get on to this later on. This is the reason, this is what keeps me up at night. Most people see technology in the world as being doing fantastic things. I just look at technology as giving all the bad guys some leverage. So, there you go. There's your career, right? You don't know which way to go, you don't know where the technology is going, you're going to be pushed around in all sorts of directions. It's an exciting world to be in. It's an exploding world to be in. The hardest problem to solve on the planet is going to be the security problem. And next time, you're going to be co-opted into my little imaginary company. It's called badguys.com. We're going to do research into cybercrime. We're going to show how to break systems. I'm going to show you how to break all sorts of systems. I'm going to show you why this is the best, why cybercrime is the best industry to be in. $1 trillion industry now. And you're all going to be new recruits. And that's going to be the topic of my next lecture. And tell all your friends who weren't here that they should be, because it's their loss if they don't. So, have we got any questions? We've got 10 minutes. I can talk about anything at all. Anyone? Otherwise, you can all go. I don't scare you too much.
Something I guess I wanted to ask someone about the security side of IT is, do you see knee-jerk reactions a lot? So say when Monte-Cry came out and it affected lots of bigger companies because they were getting scared more than anything else. It was scary to have everything locked up. Did you see any knee-jerk reactions where people would come to you and say, I need to get my security up? Like, were people coming to you for more advice?
Yeah, so okay, so it's a great question, which is does the world a knee-jerk world? And is that good or bad? So let me answer this in a few different parts. Okay, first of all, it is a knee-jerk world. Absolutely, people will react to the next threat, the next thing. They will, and part of it is driven by the only way to sell security is through fear. So a lot of things are overhyped. There is the people that are genuinely scared. There's the people who have been trying to get some airplay. You can't get any airplay until something really bad happens. It's kind of like a frog in the beaker syndrome, right? Put your frog in the beaker and you gradually hit it, right? The frog's a very primitive animal, doesn't have the temperature sensors on its skin. You say to the frog, "Hey frog, you're heating up," and the frog says, "No, I'm not. No, everything's the same, right?" No, you say, "Frog, when you get past a certain temperature, you're going to die." And the frog says, no, all that's fine. And it's only just before the frog is about to die, and he says, "Oh shit, it's hot in here, I better jump out of this beaker." Right? So the world, but the other problem is you get too much of this bad news and people become desensitized to it. Right? You don't hear about car accidents. Right? You don't hear about them. You get, thousands of people. In the US, 30,000 people die. Gun deaths, 30,000 people die a year. You don't hear about it, not much. Right? People get desensitized to it. So the flip side is that they get desensitized. The correct response is to say that, wait a minute, the world needs a roadworthy check on IT. All companies need to pass a roadworthy check. Right? Think about it. If my car is a good car, it's on the road, it doesn't help if there's a lot of unroadworthy cars out there because they can kill me. Turns out in security, even if you're secure, if everyone around you is not secure, you're stuffed, right? So the correct response is that the politicians need to do something about increasing the general level of security. And I'm sorry to say, the only way security gets better in the world is if you're mandating. People didn't wear seatbelts for what? Ever, until it became law to do so, right? So there will be, hopefully, some kind of regulation which gives you at least a minimum level. Now the problem with security is a bit like, remember the guys that, two guys by the side of the road, a tiger runs up, one guy's, and there's a prickle bush or something, there's a horrible field of prickles or something. One guy starts running with bare feet, and the other guy starts putting on his shoes. Well, you probably know he's going to get eaten, the guy who puts his shoes on, right? The point is that you only have to be slightly better than everyone around you, and you're going to do okay. A burglar that walks down the street is not going to rob every house, it's going to pick on the easy house. If you're not the easy target, right, then you're not going to pick on. So the problem is that this thing of best practice means do what everyone else is doing, even if it's wrong. Okay? So you get some event, if it's catastrophic, people go nuts, and you can actually end up with the worst thing. 9/11 actually resulted in a set of laws that were wrong, that were draconian. completely ridiculous. Because people have reacted. We go to the US now, right? You get fingerprinted, you get eye scanned, you get the entire history, completely ridiculous. So I think there's a difference between a particular problem, WannaCry being crypto malware, to solve a particular problem, and the general problem. And so what happens is you'll get a set of products might spring up around crypto, laying the thread of crypto. The problem with that is that that's only a tactic. It's not a general problem. So think about airline safety, right? There was a shoe bomber who didn't succeed, by the way. I mean, it was never going to work, and now everyone at the airport in the US has to take their shoes off. You're reacting to the method, but not to the general strategy. All right? I mean, just take aeroplanes. There's only probably one singular thing that has made airline more safe to travel out of the hundreds of things that have happened. And that was, you might know, that's the one thing that has made airlines safer to travel on from a terrorist threat than everything that's coming. I tell you what it is. It's locking the pilot doors. Now, in Africa, they've known this for years. In the Middle East, they've known it for years. Right? You lock the doors. If you can't get to the pilot, well, terrorists can hardly do it. Okay, they kill a few people, whatever. People fight back. We know that. We know you can do that. Right? Why did the airlines lock the doors? Well, it costs money. They didn't want to do it. Right? I mean, look at other things. How about arm the pilots? Well, it depends what your viewpoint was. If you're a pilot, that's a pretty cool idea. I can carry a gun. The air hostesses hated the idea, right? Here they are. They're thinking, well, pilots on one side locked all the guns, and then on the other side with the terrorists. That's not going to work. The aeroplane companies thought, oh, holes in my fuselage. It's going to cost an absolute fortune. I don't want that. So the motivations for people are kind of completely different. To answer your question, is there a knee-jerk reaction? There is always going to be localized knee-jerk reaction, and it'll dissipate. The problem is it dissipates. Or if you get lots and lots of it, then people get desensitized to it. So generally speaking, I would say that short of cataclysmic disaster, it's not going to generally change people. I mean, look at Facebook, right? The share price dipped. It's on the way up again.